Thank you for joining me for this episode of Once Upon a Crime. At the end of last year, Once Upon a Crime released a two-part series on the life and crimes of Sean Diddy Combs. In that series, I detailed the bombshell allegations against the music producer and business mogul and covered his arrest on federal charges of conspiracy, racketeering, and sex trafficking. I also looked into his early life, career, and relationships to try and determine how Sean Combs, a man who seemed to have it all, fame, money, and success, ended up in scandal and disgrace. Since then, the case has continued to unfold, with Diddy facing more than 50 civil charges, in addition to his upcoming legal battle in federal court. In this week's episode, we'll find out where the case stands now, what Diddy's life is like behind bars, and what we can expect from the trial slated to start on May 5th. My guest today, Brian Buckmire, is a legal contributor for ABC and the co-host of Law and Crime Daily. He is also a former senior staff attorney at the Legal Aid Society and a homicide defense attorney in New York. Brian's new podcast from 2020 in ABC Audio, Bad Rap, The Case Against Diddy, takes listeners inside the case to shed light on what led to Diddy's downfall and to keep us abreast on the trial as it unfolds in real time. I'm pleased to have him with us today to update us on the case against Diddy and lend his expertise in the law to help us understand what comes next. Stay tuned at the end of this episode to hear a sneak peek of Bad Rap, The Case Against Diddy. All right. So, Brian, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to talk to you about the podcast and about this case. It's something that we have covered here also on Once Upon a Crime a few months ago, though. So you have some updates for sure that I don't have. And it seems like things continue to unfold in the Sean Combs case. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
First of all, again, like I said, I covered this and now you're covering this in this long form podcast that you're getting a lot of interviews, you're getting updates. First of all, what do you think makes the public so fascinated with this case? Because, I mean, you cannot pull up anything in true crime without seeing what's happening with Sean Combs. And you'll see, from every publication and online forum and YouTube. Why are we so fascinated with this case?
I think there's a number of things. Of course, there's the big headlines when people are talking about the baby oil and people are talking about the car exploding and all the huge allegations. But I think for the most part, everyone has some sort of connection with Sean Combs, Puffy, P. Diddy, however you want to call him, whether it's my mother who's in her 60s and remembers him when he came out as a rapper and producer, or me in my mid to late 30s who remember dancing to his songs at clubs or at high school, or my brother who's in his 20s who seems to only really know him from his baby oil days, I guess. Everyone has some sort of connection as to who this person is, and they're really gravitating towards this rise and fall, which I think is a story as almost as old as time. As you see someone come from humble beginnings, they rise and then they fall, and it's something that people really gravitate towards.
Right. Yeah. That's true because, I mean, his name was ubiquitous in all kinds of things, not like you talk about in the podcast, not just in music, but in all these other businesses that he formed. And he became this, big deal entrepreneur making, tens of millions of dollars, $100 million. I don't even know how much he made, but it's just, it's something that I think, even clothing lines, people were wearing, our kids are wearing his clothes and things like that. So it became pretty huge as far as his, even his personality. I think all of that kind of played into it.
Yeah, I think he became the third billionaire in hip hop after Jay-Z and Kanye West, where if you had told someone in the 90s that you could become a billionaire from being a hip hop and rap artist, you'd probably get laughed at. And so I think that's a spectacular thing to kind of imagine. And then now he's in the Metropolitan Detention Center waiting for his trial and possibly going to serve the rest of his life in prison if found guilty.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think it's hard to kind of wrap your head around how great a fall that is from where he was to where he is now. And in the first episode, you talk about his surroundings now, like what he is being subjected to. Can you tell listeners a little bit about that? Because, that was pretty eye-opening to me.
Yeah, so I think the really great thing about the podcast is we try to pick you up from wherever you kind of start from in the Diddy, or as I call him, Puffy, because again, my mind still thinks of him as Puff rather than Diddy saga. And so we start at the very beginning and we talk about him being born in Harlem, going through Uptown Records, then starting Bad Boy, working with the Notorious B.I.G., and kind of like his quick rise. But also we touch on, as you pointed out, the fact that he's in the Metropolitan Detention Center. And what I really like about the women and people who work on, and I say women just because I think it's like nine women and one guy, and then me. So it's largely women who are working on a podcast. They really wanted to bring you into his world as closely and as quickly as possible. And they even called me up and said, "Hey, Brian, do you go to MDC?" And I said, "Yeah, I go like once a week, once every other week to see my client." And they came with me as I went to MDC. And that's why in the podcast, you can hear me describing what it's like because I'm just outside about to go in to see a client. And so I think it really brings you into the story.
Yeah. And he's treated a little bit differently there than people in general population, right? So what kind of environment is he in?
Yeah, so as you pointed out, there's what's called general population or Gen Pop, and that's where everyone is in the same kind of either facility or part of the building or floor, and those are for your average everyday people. There's also what's called segregated population, and that's more likely where he is, especially from the description of what his attorneys have described. There's also this special housing unit, or it's called SHU, SHU, which is a little bit more segregated. It's more like I don't want to say solitary confinement, but it's a little bit more segregated than segregated population. And from what we understand, he's kind of bounced back between the SHU and segregated population, so he's not with everyone else for a number of reasons. One, he's famous, and you don't want people taking advantage of him either through physical fights, assaults of that nature, or just unfortunately, there's a lot of corruption in some jails, and a rich person there could get access to certain things that might make the jail not as safe as it's supposed to be. And so that's another reason to segregate him. We've heard also reports from Sam Bankman-Fried that he's interacted with Sean Combs, so we know that he's in some form of segregated population where he's away from the majority of the people, but still interacts with some people to some degree.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I had heard rumors that maybe he was being able to get some kind of special privileges as far as, being able to pay for some things or whatever. And I wondered how that worked or if you've heard anything about that.
So I haven't heard anything about him actually getting special services, unless you're talking about the allegations from the government that say that he had gotten like a cell phone from someone or taking a PIN code from someone else to be able to make calls. That's less special services given to someone and more just like what the government would call illegal activity. Let's say if you and I, and hopefully it's never happens, are incarcerated in MDC or in a jail, we get like a punch-in code that we have to type in before we call our loved ones, and that's how we're tracked with our phone calls. And the allegations from the government is that he took someone else's PIN code to try to hide what he was telling his family members, hoping it couldn't get tracked. So that's less special attention, more just like him accused of doing something wrong.
Yeah, because I remember back not too long after I think he was booked that there was some stories about maybe him coercing witnesses or something like that. And I was wondering how that could happen. But I mean, I guess it could be through a third party as well, right?
Yeah, and I think those were the allegations. And don't forget, just kind of go back a little bit. So Sean Combs has been in NDC, which is a jail, so you stay there pending prosecution or until you take a plea. And multiple times, I think to the tune of four times, his defense attorneys have tried to get him out on some amount of bond. He'll pay $50 million and he'll stay in a penthouse close to the courts and give up his passports, all these things that he promised he would do, so long as he doesn't have to stay in MDC. And the judge denied it each time. One of the times that the judge denied it, the government, brought up information saying, hey, he's using his cell phone in his cell and making calls to people to say, hey, go talk to this person. Go make sure that this person knows that, like, I'll forever be grateful and on their side. They accused him of making all these promises that rose to the level almost, because they didn't charge him, of witness tampering to try to influence potential witnesses. And that's one of the reasons why the judge says, you know what? We're keeping it MDC.
You kind of can see like why that would have happened, but man, that really just kept him stuck now there because that's what you expect somebody of his his status and his wealth, that he would be able to get out until the trial came, like he would be out, right, like maybe a house arrest or something like that. But apparently those activities maybe thwarted that.
Yeah, I would say yes and no. I totally understand the concept. I mean, I was a former public defender in Brooklyn, New York for almost a decade. And the concept of money talks and it gets you certain services, whether you're accused of a crime or not. And yeah, that definitely happens. But I think for Sean Combs, the difficulty for him is sex trafficking as a crime. There's actually a presumption of incarceration. And so if you're charged with that crime, the presumption is that you should stay in jail until you take a plea or go to trial or whatever it may be. Because oftentimes the very nature of sex trafficking is controlling an individual to move them across state lines to compel, force, coerce, whatever it may be, them to having sex. And so if you have that power over an individual, the government looks and says, well, we fear that you might use that power against them to stop them from trying to prosecute you or helping to prosecute you. And so that's kind of the thought process behind another reason why he's still incarcerated.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when you move forward in the podcast and you actually go backwards and you talk about his life and everything that led up to, him, these charges actually coming out about him. So we know he started from humble beginnings. And I wanted to ask you, because when I was researching this as well, I thought, man, he really moved quick from just, being a college student to being this influencer and this fast forward to being a mogul, right? So what do you think, or what did you see when you were doing your research as far as how was he able to attain that level of success?
So I'm going to be purposely cryptic here, and I apologize for that because I think a lot of the great nuggets that you're asking about are going to be in the podcast. So people, please go and listen to it. But I'll say this. So we know that he started at Uptown Records with William Harrell as an intern, and he was this aggressive go-getter. And then it was almost like, for lack of a better term, Harrell was like, there's two kings in this castle and only one can survive here. And so he kind of said, you go and do your own thing, and I'm going to give you these two artists that I don't really know what to do with. And one of them was the Notorious B.I.G. Now, today we know who that person is. Massive. Like, how could anyone could have thought to pass up on him because he was such a hit maker? Well, Biggie started with Diddy, and people kind of looked at it as like, well, is it Biggie? Is it Diddy? Who was the one who really made him big? However you think about it, a lot of the praise went to Diddy. And so he kind of exploded from there, starting with Bad Boy Records. And we actually spoke to one of the people, and they're going to be on one of our future episodes of the podcast, who is his PR person that really helped sculpt him into how to put your best foot forward, not only as an exec, but as an artist as well, and how to do that for your artist as well. And so we kind of follow this rise of Sean Combs and how he went from, as you pointed out, humble beginnings to what many people thought of, or maybe arguably thought of, as a potential kingmaker. And then in going back and looking at the allegations from Cassie and the dozens and dozens of civil lawsuits, we try to kind of overlap or juxtapose the allegations with what we saw in real life. So we know they went to the MTV or the VMA Awards together, but now we know that just days before, there's that video of Sean Combs assaulting Cassie. So now we're like, all right, can we see the bruises? How do we miss these signs? Like, what were the red flags that we kind of just brushed aside, but now we're looking back? And that's kind of how the podcast explores the history of Diddy, overlapping the allegations and what we saw in the public eye.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. He had this reputation. And so I think that putting those things together it's so jarring to people, especially like you said. I mean, there's so many generations that have grown up with Diddy in some form, like we were saying at the beginning, and yet to look at that video and to see that, I mean, I think that really was something that changed people's mind immediately. There's usually not that kind of dramatic evidence that the public sees about something like this. When there's a downfall of somebody, we could talk about Bill Cosby or Michael Jackson or something like that. These are like our big icons that we see, we hear these allegations about, but this we actually saw on video. The youth mental health crisis is real, and social media is fueling it. The average teen spends 9 hours a day on screens outside of school. That's a full-time job, just scrolling. You might not know this, but I used to be in the classroom teaching high school kids. Keeping them off their phones and focused on schoolwork inside class was hard enough. But at home, we parents have to limit their screen time and keep them away from inappropriate content. which at times feels almost impossible. But what if tech didn't have to be toxic? Meet Gab, the only tech company solving the crisis with a more innovative solution, tech in steps. That means the right device at the right age. For younger kids, a Gab watch with GPS tracking and safe zones provides peace of mind for parents and freedom for kids. For tweens, a starter phone with more features, like monitored messaging and video calling, makes their first smartphone a safe phone. And for teens, Gab provides a powerful phone with premium features most requested by kids. They'll get all the apps they want that are still parent-managed, and a premium camera for those all-important selfies. Gab isn't just a phone. It's a plan for growing up safely. When my littles are old enough and ready for a smartphone, I can give them tech that grows with them. They'll get connected safely and still have access to clean music apps and be protected with Gab's smart filtration that blocks harmful content before it ever reaches them. And that's true peace of mind. Protecting your kids has never been easier. For the best deals, sign up to Gab today. No contract required at gab.com/once. That's Gab, GABB.com/once. Gab.com/once. Terms and conditions apply. Do you have one of those dogs that eats anything that falls on the ground? I mean, literally snaps up the food before it even hits the ground? Or do you have my problem? A finicky dog who has to sniff his food from all angles before ultimately rejecting it and looking at you like, what else you got? My French Bulldog Benji has made mealtime a real hassle. I mean, I want to give him good, healthy food that will keep him around and thriving for a long time. But he hated the smell, the taste, and even the idea of most dog foods. He'd prefer burgers, chicken nuggets, and of course, hold the vegetables. That was until I discovered Spot and Tango's Unkibble. Spot and Tango's Unkibble is everything regular kibble isn't. It's made with real human-grade ingredients and personalized to what your dog actually needs. Benji can totally taste the difference and loves Spot and Tango's Unkibble, and I feel great knowing he's eating 100% whole fresh ingredients like USDA meats, fruits, and yes, even veggies. Benji now enjoys mealtime and eats all his veggies. I've noticed his skin is healthier with less shedding and dry spots, and his digestion has been problem-free since we switched to Spot and Tango's Unkibble. Benji and I are big fans, and your dogs will be too. Both the chow hounds and the finicky eaters will love Spot and Tango. Spot and Tango even takes the guesswork out of how much to feed your dog by creating a custom plan based on their age, weight, and activity level. You'll get a pre-measured scoop with your bag of Unkibble, so you'll get portions right every time. Upgrade your pet's bowl with Spot and Tango Unkibble. For a limited time, go to spotandtango.com/once and use code ONCE to get 50% off your first order. That's spotandtango.com/once, code ONCE to get 50% off your first order. spotandtango.com/once, code ONCE. Get back to basics with La Pure Naturals. Has your skincare routine become a long, arduous process of applying multiple products each morning and evening with varying results? La Pure's Beef Tallow Face Cream is skincare that does it all, hydrates, repairs, and adds a natural glow. La Pure believes that beauty doesn't have to be complicated. It replaces dozens of products with one powerful, nourishing cream made of effective, natural, clean ingredients like beef tallow, essential oils, aloe vera, raw honey, and colloidal oatmeal. La Pure's Beef Tallow Face Cream combines anti-aging properties and deep hydration to moisturize and repair your skin. It's packed with vitamins A, D, E, and K to reduce the appearance of fine lines and keep skin plump, smooth, and youthful. It's gentle on sensitive skin, absorbs beautifully, and leaves no greasy feel. Listen to what satisfied customers had to say about switching to La Pure Beef Tallow Face Cream. Tony says, "I love how it makes my skin feel, not greasy, but soft and super moisturized." Sienna says, "I'd never tried beef tallow face cream before, but I heard people rave about it. It smells delicious and it's extremely gentle on the skin." And Carrie says, "I absolutely love this whipped beef tallow lotion. It smells great and the cream is so buttery soft and smooth that it feels excellent on the skin. Along with being extremely soft and moisturizing, this whipped tallow butter also works great on my lips. My skin tends to be dry, so La Pure's Beef Tallow Face Cream provides the moisture I need without feeling heavy or greasy. Beef tallow mimics the skin's natural oils, giving you results you can see and feel naturally. Unlock your natural glow. Discover the power of nature's original skincare. Get yours at lapurenaturals.com. Use code ONCE for 40% off. That's lapurenaturals.com and use code ONCE for 40% off. So I wanted to ask you, what was the thing that started bringing these things to light to everybody? What was the main thing that kind of got this ball rolling where people could see there's another side to Diddy here?
Yeah, so if I had to pick one thing, I think the clear one is Cassie's lawsuit. It was kind of like a blip on the radar, only because it was literally, I think it might have been a Friday or a Thursday, but it was a bombshell civil lawsuit with all of these allegations, and we were like, what? Like, what is she alleging? Like, what's going on? And then the very next day, it was settled. And so we still kind of talked about it afterwards. I think people kind of felt like this was big, but it's done now, and maybe the floodgates will open up and there'll be more lawsuits, maybe not, but yeah. And then there was like a trickle, and there's a few more lawsuits after that. But I think the next big thing that really sparked us all was Rodney Jones's lawsuit. Because in Rodney Jones's lawsuit, he didn't just have the allegations that I think the three or four alleged victims, including Cassie, had before he filed, but he had the receipts. He had like, hey, here is a still shot of this video that I have where this person is touching this person, and this person I believe is an underage woman at this party, or underage girl, sorry, at this party. This person is a sex worker who I had to hire to get here. Go to the Miami house, go to the LA house. He has videos where he keeps his trophies. A lot of corroboration as well in that lawsuit to Cassie's. And I think those two are the major ones where the SDNY, the Southern District of New York, where Combs is being prosecuted, they're like, all right, we gotta check this out.
Yeah, the videos. I mean, from what I've heard, I mean, there's tons of videotape of this that he liked to video everything. And we can go back and we can look at some old things that he's videotaped a lot of things, just, he'd meet up with somebody and he'd start a video. And I don't know, to me, it just seems so reckless, that to have all of these things. But again, maybe you have this idea that you have this power and you don't have to worry about it, or people you're taking care of in some way. I don't know, but most of us, we're not going to be putting video out about everything that we do, especially if it's questionable. But yeah, so there was allegations that came out where started with, I think, a lot of them about the parties, the after parties. So we knew about the infamous, white parties that everybody wanted to be at, and all these celebrities were there. As this very ritzy kind of thing, but he would even kind of make like allude to these after parties that, I heard on the podcast there was an announcement made at a party, like basically saying, let people listen to that, but saying, okay, like, get ready for this party kind of thing. And what did you make of all of that? Like, there was so many of these allegations, but they stayed hidden for so long, or at least maybe just in an inner circle, there was maybe some rumors of it, but of course it didn't come out to the public, or we'd be looking at him differently from a long time ago. How do you think those stayed secret so long, or what are you learning from this case that maybe somehow they were quashed? How did that happen?
Yeah, so some of the things you're pointing out, like in the podcast where we actually have him, and that's the beauty, I think, of this podcast. ABC has such a digital library where we can go back and kind of point at things and be like, was this something that was a red flag and we just kind of ignored? And I think the one you're pointing at is when he's at a white party and he says, all right, guys, you guys can keep partying, but in some such and such amount of time, all the kids got to go home because that's when the adults start to party, which on its face, I mean, I've got a 2-year-old. That makes sense to me. Like, I go to a pool party, and then at 9 o'clock, that's when like the hard liquor comes out, and they turn off the kids' music, and they bump the adult music, and so it kind of made sense at the time, and I think it wasn't a red flag for people. There's also the now infamous, I guess, Conan O'Brien interview where he says like, yeah, you've got to have water at the party, and you got to lock the doors, and I think Conan O'Brien at the time even says, well, that's kind of kinky. Well, now we're looking at that, it was like, wait, you were locking doors at your after parties, and now we hear these allocations, and now they're bigger red flags. But we have a lot of great guests and a lot of great interviews, again, through ABC's digital library, like Tiffany Red, who is one of Cassie's friends, or other people who are in the Combs and Cassie kind of atmosphere. And they say he had a temper, even if you go to the allegations as well, they say he had a temper. They say that he kind of held power over individuals, whether it be I can make your career happen or I can make your career fail. Cassie has alleged in her lawsuit that she had a 10, or no, not she alleged, we knew that she had a 10 album deal with Bad Boys, but that never came to fruition. People have said that she's recorded, but they shelved her music, and she was always told, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. We know from Don Richard and other people who have worked with Sean Combs, Rodney Jones, that he kind of just dangled the king-making power he had over them to say, it's going to happen. You just got to do this for me and this for me. And I think that's what they're alleging is how he kind of did this for so long.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and you also go into in the podcast about his behavior in making the band and the allegations that came about that with that show that he was doing, the reality show, which I didn't know a lot about. So that was very eye-opening to me as well. So it was, things are being videotaped, and you have him doing these things and the temper coming out and the exploiting people, coming out. That of course we see even more of this now in this filing, this federal filing. That was the thing I was going to ask you. How did this become a federal case? Like, what's the difference there? Because I don't think listeners really understand that.
Yeah. So the easy, short answer as to why a case with certain allegations would be federal rather than state is what we call interstate commerce, which is just the movement of goods or property across state lines. And so the federal government is saying a number of things. One, that Sean Combs has a criminal enterprise that has used arson, forced labor, sex trafficking, assault, rapes to further this criminal enterprise. And the manifestation of that is the freak-offs, that he would bring people across state lines, thus affecting interstate commerce, making it a federal case. And that's that RICO conspiracy. And the same concept with the sex trafficking, as well as the transportation to engage in prostitution, that these actions are not just centralized in one state, but affecting multiple states as these individuals are being moved across state lines. That's generally speaking why it's a federal case.
So does that make it more difficult for him to, I guess, for his defense to be in a federal court versus, a state court?
So I would say yes and no. It's definitely more difficult because he's going up against the Southern District of New York, which boasts of having a 90 to 95% conviction rate. They do not play. I can tell you as a person who practices in the Southern District of New York and the Eastern District of New York and has practiced in New York for about a decade now, the state, actually, over a decade now, getting old. I don't like showing up at the SDNY. They do not play. When they've indicted you, they've got a pretty solid case. You might be lucky to be in that 5% of winning cases. It happens, but that is a strong case. But think about it this way, for people who have played Jenga before, right? Where you kind of take out the pieces and you're hoping it doesn't fall. This is how I explain it to people. The prosecutors are playing Jenga with the defense, and the prosecutors are hoping that structure stays complete. And the defense oftentimes just has to take out the right brick to make it fall. Their goal is to make the whole case fall apart. Now, with a RICO case, are there more bricks that might be able to pull apart to make it all fall down? Yes. But there's also a lot more bricks there to keep the structure standing. And so could the defense find that one perfect piece of evidence that makes it all fall apart? Yeah, sure. But the prosecution also has a lot more tools in a federal case like this to make sure that structure stays intact.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So it's not this is not some kind of case that can be pled out. Is that correct?
So this is where I got to kind of put like the lawyer hat on for a second. Yeah, theoretically speaking, at any point in time, any case can be pled out. We've seen cases where you pick a jury and the jury's about to walk in and for whatever reason, the client says, whoa, let's take that plea. So that's always a possibility. But from everything we've seen in terms of the responses from the defense, as well as the way the government is prosecuting this case, it doesn't seem like there is, one, going to be a type of offer that will be accepted, or two, one that would even be conveyed that the government wants. I think this is the type of case where the government wants life or something as close to it based on what allegations they're putting forward in this case.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty serious, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And just what updates have you heard about the trial?
Yeah, so we know the trial is supposed to begin May 5th. And when I say trial, I'm including jury selection. So they should begin jury selection on May 5th. And their expectation, which I think is a bit of a long shot, is to start the trial a week after May 12th. And the reason why I say it's a long shot is I think it's going to be very difficult to find 12 people and 3 to 4 alternates for this big of a case where so many people know about Diddy, so many people know about the facts of the case, so many people have come to maybe even like a decision as to whether or not he's guilty or innocent already. To find 12 people in the Southern District of New York, which includes Manhattan, might take more than a week. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it does. But this trial is also expected to last for 8 weeks. And so you're talking, what, May 12th, 8 weeks, that's 2 months. So June, July. Um, I could see this going just a little past the 4th of July, and that would not be the craziest thing in the world. Um, I'm in fact planning on it. My wife's birthday is July 5th, and I said, sweetheart, we'll do something for your birthday, maybe a little before, a little after, because it's going to be crazy.
It's so funny. You just mentioned 4th of July, and I was remembering what you said in the podcast on the first episode with the 4th of July party that he had, that he came in with. Did you say it was an original copy of the Declaration of Independence?
Yeah, this is okay. So just like it probably doesn't come through in my voice, but I was shocked when they first told me this. I don't think I remember it happening to begin with. I'm Canadian, right? So my understanding is the Declaration of Independence is like close to the Ten Commandments in this country. And I'm like, you just let this guy walk around with it? Like what is going on? But again, through our research, it was the 4th of July. He was really getting into politics. Barack Obama, who we now know to be the 2-term first black president of the United States, at the time, he was like a little known senator from Illinois. And he was just feeling very patriotic. And kind of just to talk about the power that Diddy had at the time, he could literally get the original copy of the Declaration of Independence to show up at a party. Like that's the power he wielded at the time. And to me, it still blows my mind. But yeah, he did it.
Yeah. I had to rewind. I'm like, what original copy of
Yeah.
what the heck? That was a crazy. I had not heard that story. And there are things like that I'm learning in bad rep. Like I said, I did research Diddy and I did more of his backstory as well. And you cover that as well, and leading up to Cassie and her career and all of that, and how all of that unfolded, and some things like you said, the red flags that maybe now we can see in that relationship, things that he did in his past when he was very young in college. All of those things come out here also in the podcast. But there are some nuggets that I'm telling you that I had never heard. I was like, what is going on here? And that is the thing. The celebrity, and I was going to ask you about this, like celebrity defendants, like that just seems like a whole different animal in a courtroom. So how is that going to play out? How do you envision that playing out in the courtroom? I mean, are there going to be like celebrity witnesses, and then that's going to be that whole media circus around that? What do you kind of anticipate?
Well, I would anticipate for the trial, and so let me backtrack for a bit. I'm assuming that the majority of your listeners, because the majority of people are in the same boat, they don't walk into the Southern District of New York very often. And I think we kind of actually, I hope makes the cut. We kind of jokingly talk about it. Aaron Katursky, the chief investigative reporter at ABC, and I talk about it, where I think this is mainly audio, but I think so for some of the viewers, if they can see me, I've got a blue blazer on. And this is like my most boring but most SDNY blazer that I have. Because when I go to that court, it's blue and blue tie and white shirt and black. I sometimes wear brown shoes and black shoes because it's very by the book, very procedural. You check the box. You don't do anything flashy. But if you see me anywhere outside of the Southern District of New York, Eastern District of New York, Manhattan, the Bronx, any of the court, even just walking home, I've got a maroon blazer. I've got green jackets. I've got different colorful suits. But the way in which that court operates and the way in which those government prosecutors operate is so just by the book and like just simple and straightforward. It makes me think we're not going to see celebrity witnesses out of this office just because of the way they operate. Not because they might not be in the sphere of the allegations and they could help contribute to the case, but just the way the Southern District of New York operates, I would probably say no. But we have seen, for example, in civil lawsuits, like Jay-Z was named in one of the allegations where Sean Combs was accused of having sex with a then 13-year-old along with Jay-Z. Now, that lawsuit has been dropped, and Jay-Z is filing a defamation lawsuit against Tony Busby as well as the Jane Doe in that case, and he has adamantly denied those allegations along with Sean Combs. But in this case, we have seen a number of big names come up. There's an arson charge, for example, in this case. And as he talked about in the podcast, that arson is attached to Sean Combs allegedly blowing up Kid Cudi's car to prove to Cassie that he can get to people around her. Now, is Kid Cudi going to come and testify? Maybe, maybe not. But he's definitely involved within this case in one way, shape, or form.
Right. Yeah. So that's very interesting to know that they're going to keep it pretty buttoned up, this trial, which is, it's good because, I mean, you can talk about the OJ trial. I mean, that was just a circus. That was just
Yeah.
a circus.
Yeah, the OJ trial, I think, would be the furthest thing from the way the Southern District of New York operates. It's just night and day.
Yes, people shouldn't anticipate that going on here.
No. I mean, as I always say this, Brian Buckmire, ABC contributor, wishes it was like that because it would be great to talk about, great to see, great to watch. But Brian Buckmire, attorney who's barred in the Southern District of New York, that's kind of how we do it. That's kind of how I like it because you just kind of keep it quick and it's about the facts and the law, not about the sensationalism of it.
Exactly, and exactly how it should be. So what will listeners of your podcast, Bad Rap, what will they learn about this case? And was there anything you learned while researching the story? I'm kind of looking for something that was surprising to you or what you think will be surprising to listeners when they listen to your podcast.
Yeah. So I think for the listeners of the podcast, the one thing that I really liked and that we really tried our best to do is we try to take you where you're from. And so there are people who knew a lot about Diddy and might not be surprised about what they hear about in the podcast, but they'll learn a little bit because, and these are the things that I've learned, talking to the producer who worked with Cassie, who got to see what Sean Combs was like allegedly behind closed doors, or the violence and the control and the things that she says allegedly happened. Talking to his PR person when he first came out at Bad Boy and how he was taught how to rebrand and kind of watch how the media and the news is flowing to make sure that he's always at the forefront, even though if bad news was coming out or he was going through, how to rebrand and reposition so he was going to be okay. And that's how I kind of learned, like, okay, this is maybe how the City College stampede, where people have been seriously injured, I think died as well, how he kind of came back from that. How the whole Shine going to jail and his involvement and potentially J Lo and the gun in the person, how he kind of turned around from that. The thing that I learned is, like, I knew about all these little legal troubles he came across, but never how he pivoted and how he somehow always got out without any kind of scrapes. That's what I learned. And I think most of our viewers will learn that. But also, to your point, like the Declaration of Independence being at a party or other like interesting, weird facts that you got to go and listen to. There's all those cool nuggets in the podcast that you got to look out for as well.
Yeah, I really am. Like I said, having researched this case and looking through, a lot of interviews and things like that. And, but yeah, there was a lot of things that I missed. And you're right. I think ABC is a great research tool there because there's like these stories. I mean, and I think there's more and more of those that come out. And again, that's the other thing with the law. It's like, what are the things that are actually things that can be corroborated and you could use in trial, and what are some of the things that are just rumors and innuendo and allegations and things that maybe can't be backed up. But those are, of course, I think people are also looking for the gossip as well when you're talking about celebrity, even trials. So yeah, very interesting. I'm really enjoying the podcast, and I am going to be putting a clip here after we're done so people can get a taste of what it sounds like and go subscribe to it, because I think you will be surprised at things you learn, even if you think you know the case, because I thought I did, but there's definitely more. Now, are you going to be, like, as the trial goes forward, are you going to continue to be reporting on that? Or are you going to have episodes coming out about the trial?
Absolutely. So the format of the podcast is it's every Tuesday we release another episode leading up to the trial. 6 episodes in total, kind of starting from Sean Combs when he started off being born in Harlem, to looking at the indictment and even some of the new facts We expect on April 15th that there will be a release of at least some of the victims or alleged victims' name or some of the potential witnesses. We know a motion came out recently where the government is asking that victim one, who we presume to be Cassie, will be named through the case, but victims 2, 3, and 4, they want to go under their pseudonyms or their acronyms or some other name. And so we'll follow up with that in the last episode as well. But when the trial starts, we're going to have 2 episodes a week. Every week for the trial. I'm expecting at least 8 weeks, if not more, where we give you updates, what's going on, breaking down what's happening, the talking about the headlines. We're trying to really strike this balance of reporting, but also analyzing, because while we are ABC, I am also a practicing attorney in the very courtroom where he's being prosecuted. And so we're trying to lean on both resources of, okay, they want to argue this and we report on it, but what does this mean? How is this going to play into the case? How is this all operating? And what are these, not just headlines, but let's make it make sense for you, the listener. So at the end of the week, you can be like, I know what happened. I understand where we're going, and follow along the entire trial.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds really, really great. So I think there's like 4 episodes out now so far, at least. And so what I'm thinking is I have to catch up on the last 2 that I still have to listen to, so that as we're coming out to the trial, that I can keep up with it, because I think that's going to be the most fun way and the most informative to be following along while you guys are reporting on this. So that's amazing. That's great. Thank you so much. I really appreciated the discussion. It was really fun. There was a lot that I learned, and I'm really excited to follow along with everything that unfolds.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here and doing this interview and promoting the podcast. Again, Bad Rap, Case Against Diddy comes out every Tuesday, and then when the trial starts, twice a week. And I appreciate all you're doing with true crime. And as an attorney, I appreciate the way that you kind of like explain the criminal justice system and the way that you do. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And go ahead, everybody subscribe right now so you don't miss, because this trial is coming up fast, real fast. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Brian. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great one.
That will do it for this episode of Once Upon a Crime. Once again, I'd like to thank my guest, Brian Buckmire. I really enjoyed talking to him about this case. I'm already a fan of his podcast, Bad Rap, The Case Against Diddy, and I'll be following the case with him as new episodes are released. Stay tuned at the end for a clip from Bad Rap, The Case Against Diddy. There's a link in the show notes to subscribe, or look for it wherever you listen to podcasts. I'll be back next week with another episode as we wrap up Season 9 in May. If you have yet to listen to all our episodes, there are over 300 for you to binge in our back catalog. You can also watch videos that accompany our episodes on YouTube. We'd love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and share us with a friend. All the links are in the show notes. If you'd like even more true crime content from Once Upon a Crime, join us on Patreon. As a member, you'll get bonus episodes not heard anywhere else, as well as behind-the-scenes looks into Once Upon a Crime, blooper reels, video episodes, and more. Go to patreon.com/onceuponacrime to find out more and join. Once Upon a Crime is written and produced by me, Esther Sanchez Ludlow. My executive producer is Lorena Garcia. Until next time, be good to one another.
Sean Diddy Combs seemed to have it all. More than a rapper, producer, reality star, and entrepreneur, he was a kingmaker, a true mogul. He flaunted his fame and fortune, hosting lavish parties with A-list celebrities in Beverly Hills, the French Riviera, and the Hamptons.
The Diddy parties were parties that everybody went to. Every celebrity, every influencer, everybody that wanted to be at the most lit party wanted to go to Diddy's party.
Diddy is definitely the most powerful and influential person in hip-hop music, or one of them. And I would actually even argue to say not just hip-hop, but in the music business in general. Like, for 30 years, he was on top of his game.
Born in Harlem and raised in a suburb outside the Bronx, Diddy was even awarded the key to New York City in 2023.
What's up? Welcome to New York!
But just 1 year later, Sean Combs had no keys. He was locked up in a notoriously dangerous and decrepit federal detention center in Brooklyn. I'm Brian Buckmire, an attorney and ABC News legal contributor. Diddy's downfall has captivated this country. For decades, there were whispers of violence and abuse. Then, a lawsuit filed by his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, with shocking allegations.
He used illegal substances and threats of violence to force Ms. Ventura into repeated unwanted sexual encounters with male sex workers.
Diddy settled a day later with no admission of guilt. A few months later, the feds made their move.
In a dramatic turn of events, federal investigators raiding 2 homes owned by hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs.
And newly surfaced security footage showed the public a side of Combs that most people had never seen before.
Disturbing video that shows Sean Diddy Combs kicking, shoving, and dragging his ex-girlfriend.
Combs now faces federal racketeering conspiracy and sex trafficking charges, allegations he denies.
Mr. Combs is a fighter. He's going to fight this to the end. He's innocent.
Dozens of his alleged victims are now coming forward. Some are suing him, alleging sexual assault and forced drug use. Others are ready to speak out about what they say Combs was really like.
And I just had to bite my tongue and let somebody disrespect me in ways that I never imagined.
I was at the top of my game, and he knocked me off. I'm glad that he is locked up.
Combs' legal team says he's never sexually assaulted anyone, adult or minor, man or woman. As Sean Combs awaits his federal trial, we'll trace the steps of his remarkable rise to the top of music, fashion, and entertainment, only to have it all come crashing down. And we'll follow the twists and turns of the case as the man who dubs himself a bad boy for life now faces the possibility of being locked up for life. This is Bad Rap, The Case Against Diddy, a new series from ABC Audio coming March 25th. Follow and listen wherever you get your podcasts.